Good evening and welcome to the Assembly of Osteopathic Graduate Medical Educators AOGME webinar series. We're pleased to have you join us for this AOGME webinar on virtual networking featuring Dr. Nicholas Elwert. My name is Austin Wetmore. I'm the program manager for GME initiatives at ACOM, and I will help facilitate this webinar. Before we get started, I would like to review a few housekeeping notes. This webinar is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the AOGME webpage shortly. All webinar participants are in listen-only mode. If you experience technical issues during the webinar, please use the chat feature and we will assist you. If you have questions for Dr. Elwert during the webinar, please feel free to submit them through the Q&A feature at any time. If time permits at the end of the webinar, Dr. Elwert will respond to your questions. I will now briefly introduce our presenter. Nicholas Elwert, DOMS, is an assistant professor in the Department of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation at the University of Kentucky. He graduated from LMU DCOM and completed his residency training in physical medicine and rehabilitation at the University of Kentucky. He currently serves as the program director of stroke rehabilitation at Cardinal Hill Rehabilitation Hospital in Lexington, Kentucky, and he serves as the resident research advisor and associate program director for the University of Kentucky PM&R residency program. His passions in PM&R include neurorehabilitation, specifically stroke rehabilitation, and spasticity management. He is equally passionate about resident education, diversity, and inclusivity, as well as networking with the use of social media. While not working, he enjoys rooting for his Cincinnati Reds, Kentucky Wildcats, and Cincinnati Bengals, and spending time with his family. Thank you again to Dr. Elwert for being with us today and for preparing this presentation. With that, I'll turn it over to Dr. Elwert.
Well, hey, everyone. Thanks for joining me tonight. I know there are certainly probably other things that you could be doing with your evening, but I'm so excited that you're here. I have to say, this is a new one for me. I had to look, and I'm apparently logged in somewhere else. So if you have questions, you can see the microphone going back and forth on my name where I'm Nicholas Elwert, DO. Where the other Nicholas Elwert is, but that's okay. As was mentioned by Austin, you guys don't have the ability to unmute yourselves, but I really want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to ask questions. And this is really meant for you guys. I will be very honest with you that this lecture and my passion for this really kind of flourished through COVID. As we all know, COVID really changed a lot of stuff in medical education. And as it changed with medical education, it also changed on how to network with programs to achieve your ultimate goal of going to residency. So that's what we're going to do. We have about 20 slides that we're going to go through. I would expect to be done about maybe quarter till, and then really want to make sure that I answer all of your questions. I will say a list of questions were provided to me on the registration, and I do go through the majority of those questions. But if there's ones that I don't answer to your liking or answer completely, please do not hesitate to reach out. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share, and we'll go ahead and get started, guys. All right, perfect. Can I get a thumbs up? Can you guys see my screen? Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So, what are the objectives? With every lecture, you have to have objectives of what I hope to accomplish at the end of this 45 minutes to an hour together. So I have 5 main objectives. Those objectives are understand the importance of virtual networking and its impact with residency and just really job applications as a whole. Outline appropriate and inappropriate communication with programs. I think that's one of the biggest questions that I received, and it's one of probably the most important things when you talk about virtual networking. I hope that I've completed this objective at the end of this lecture is be able to that you know how to utilize social media in an effective manner for your ultimate goal. I hope at the end of this that you gain a better understanding on how to access virtual opportunities. And then we're also going to talk about the virtual interview process. I'd be remiss if I didn't go through everything about virtual networking and then talk about how the overwhelming majority of programs will be handling their interviews for the upcoming academic and match cycle. Now, whenever I give a lecture, I outline objectives, but it is my job as your lecturer to kind of outline how we're going to meet those objectives. So first off, we're going to understand networking. We're going to talk about the how and the why, and then we're going to talk about where to start, how to use social media, how to communicate with programs, and then we're going to finish with a couple of slides on the virtual interviews. A little bit about me, as Austin mentioned. So I graduated from a really small college called Wilmington College in Wilmington, Ohio, where I got my BS in biology and a minor in chemistry. I attended the LMU, DeBusk College of Osteopathic Medicine Harrogate campus. And during my time there, I was also an anatomy and OMM fellow. I went into the field of physical medicine and rehab. If you don't know what that field is, I'm biased, but it's the best. I love it. I love what I do every day. But I was grateful to match at the University of Kentucky, and now I am an assistant professor there at the University of Kentucky with specializing in stroke rehabilitation. Now that's my story in word form. Let's talk about my story a little bit in picture form. I love these pictures when I give a lecture of folks that I haven't had the chance to meet. So this is me. This is our white coat ceremony. Our white coat ceremony is very early. Well, it was really early on in our first year. That's my wife there. You can see young, dapper, ready to go. And now this is my first faculty photo. Now, as if you were to Google my name and I come up in UK healthcare, you're going to see a picture similar to this, but you don't see all the outtakes. And this is really how that day went. I love this picture. I think it's hilarious. The other thing that you don't know is that I had a fight with my razor that night as I was trying to make my beard professional. I took a gash out of my beard. And so that's why I have a goatee. So never have a goatee ever in my life. And I'm doing something, smiling or pondering. I don't know what I'm doing, but that's really how the day went. So that's me kind of in a nutshell. All right, so let's talk about what networking is. Everyone uses this term, oh, you've got a network, but like, what is it? I'm actually on vacation this week and was talking with my 3-year-old son. We were talking about what we were going to do for the day. And I told him that I had a lecture and he's like, well, Daddy, what's your lecture do? And I said, well, my lecture is on networking. And he's like, well, what's networking do? And I thought that was a perfect segue into, well, what does networking do for you in the grand scheme of things? So if you were to Google networking, this is what comes up. It's the action or process of interacting with others to exchange information and develop professional or social contacts. If you want to boil it down, the goal is relationship building. Through networking, you hope to build relationships, whether that is to you build relationships to achieve the goal that you are setting out. Because whenever you start to network, you have to have a goal in mind, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So whether that is a job at your desired institution, whether that is residency, whatever that might be, you have to have a goal so that you develop the appropriate relationships. And what does networking really do for you? So those are the 3 big highlights right here that it does for you. It increases your visibility, it expands your opportunities, and it not only offers the opportunity or offers the ability to help you, but also to help your colleagues and to help others. Because at the end of the day, we're all in this to succeed. Now, before you start, have a mission. I just mentioned that is if you're going to embark on this process of building relationships, you have to make sure that you're building the appropriate relationships with the appropriate individuals and institutions to achieve your end goal. I also recommend is create your brand. For those on the call with this picture, I would say the overwhelming majority would understand oh, hey, that's Jordan Brand. That has become an iconic symbol for a particular brand. Now, after this lecture, I don't expect you to be synonymous with the Jordan brand. But I think you kind of get my drift is you want when someone looks at your profile or when someone hears your name, that they understand, oh yeah, I know that individual. And that's all how your networking starts. So where to start? You might be like, all right, cool, Dr. Nick, I'm on board. Where do I go from here? Is you have to seek out virtual opportunities. If we're talking about virtual networking, we have to identify what opportunities are available virtually. And the first place to start is social media. I will be the first one to say that I understand the pitfalls of social media, and we go through those here in a couple of slides. And I understand why some people might be hesitant about social media, but used appropriately, social media can be an amazing resource for your career. I started on Twitter. I was at a conference with a colleague, and he mentioned to me, hey, you should really get on Twitter. This was during my third year of residency. And at first I was really like, oh, no, I'm not going to do it. And I was like, all right, I kind of caved in and said, I'll do it. And I'll be honest with you, that has changed the trajectory of my career and has really changed some of the networking opportunities that I have had through my career. So first and foremost, I recommend get on Twitter and Instagram. Those are the two main social media channels. LinkedIn is certainly a opportunity for folks. Now, I will say LinkedIn is a little different in regards to interacting with programs, etc. But Twitter and Instagram are great places to start. Let's say you get on Twitter, you get on Instagram. The first thing that you should do is you should go and you should follow your programs that interest you. If you have an idea of, hey, I really, these are some of my top choices, go and look and see if they're on social media. And I will guarantee you that you'll be surprised at how many are. Another place to start is to go to Inside the Match. This is an amazing organization that is resident driven. They also have a website, insidethematch.com. They have so many amazing opportunities and resources for those that have matched into particular fields, those who haven't matched, those going through the process the first time. They have amazing opportunities both on their website and through their social media. So that is where I recommend to start, is see what opportunities are out there on social media, and simply by searching in those in Twitter and Instagram, etc. Another place to start is go to the program website. So what I would do is if you have a list of your top programs, I guarantee you that they will advertise what different virtual opportunities that they are doing on their website. So that's another opportunity where you can start. Large organizations, every field of medicine has them. Going to their websites and conference pages, they will have what virtual opportunities are available. For example, one of the main PM&R bodies is AOC PM&R, the American Osteopathic College of PM&R, and we advertise on our website what different virtual opportunities that we have on a consistent basis. If push comes to shove and you can't find anything, ask your colleagues. If if I was an applicant going into PM&R and I had a friend that I knew was also going to PM&R, I'd say, hey, what resources are you using? Who are you looking at in regards to what resources that they have? Also asking your faculty members, residents who you might know. The worst someone can say to you is, nope, we don't have anything. And then you go on to the next. So really just getting yourself out there and asking what opportunities are available is how you start. You also have to forgive me. I sound a little nasally today. My allergies have been out of control, so I apologize for being a little nasally tonight. I'd be remiss if I just talked about the importance of social media and didn't talk about MedTwitter. For those that are on Twitter, I think it is an amazing resource. And just as we talked about, why should you get involved? It's the opportunities and the networking are really endless, and the opportunities that you have to network are extreme. There are many organizations that offer opportunities. If you're an evidence-based medicine person, so we have some evidence, and everyone should be evidence-based medicine. If you're going to tell me, hey, I want you to spend time doing this, this, and this, there better be some statistics to back it up. And this looked at an early study looking at research, this was a retrospective review looking at research articles, and it showed that heavily tweeted reports are 11 times more likely to be cited, 75% versus 7%, than articles that were not tweeted and only cited. And not only that, but they were cited more often and sooner. So this is an amazing opportunity to be able to share your research or share research that is important to you and to get the word out. If you were like me when I was in a hotel room in Baltimore with my colleague and he was convincing me to get onto social media, I didn't know really where to start. This is your starter packet right here. So the first thing is to make a handle that is that identifies you professionally. So you can see here, my handle here is Dr. Nick D.O. I've had the amazing opportunity to mentor many residents and students, and I'll never forget, I was mentoring this one student, and we were talking about getting involved in social media, and their particular handle referenced like hunting birds or reference some hunting item. And I said, hey, I think, that's fine, but how if someone is going to go looking for you, how is someone going to know who you are? And so making sure that you have a handle that identifies you professionally. Normally the follow-up question to this is, well, Dr. Nick, should I create a professional account and a more non-professional account? That is totally your prerogative. I would recommend that if you have a Twitter account that you've been using for years, that maybe it was before you even decided to go into medicine, probably making one that is just specifically for medicine, so you can target what you see in regards to organizational posts, different leaders in the field. I probably would recommend making a professional account. Below my Twitter handle, you can see that I have kind of my elevator pitch or my one-liner that describes me in a nutshell. So you can see there that I'm the APD at our program, and our program has a page. So I have, so I went ahead and put our handle in there. You can have a hashtag for physiatry. I'm very much of a person that I like to remember where my roots are. So I graduated from Wilmington to DCOM. I'm an avid Reds fan, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it. If there's any Cincinnati Reds fans out there, we can collaborate after this session, I guess. I'm a husband and a father, and then I have views are my own, and I will explain why I have that in my profile. So different things of who you are, where you're located, and what you're interested in, both inside and outside of medicine. You can see that I have a couple of tags and hashtags in there. Those are optional, I would say. Now, when, a couple of years ago, now more than a couple of years ago, when I started this venture of going on to Twitter, I didn't know this stuff. I didn't really understand how to really make a powerful tweet, or how to go about making sure that I was that all of my content had a was meaningful. And so if you were like me, this is why I included this slide here, so you can see what your username, your Twitter handle, your profile picture. You have here what's called a mention. You have hashtags. You can put a link in there if you prefer, have some media, imaging, GIFs, what have you. And then this down here is your likes, retweets, and replies. And again, for those that might be new to social media, this is kind of an outline of what the terminology is in Twitter. If you want to read an article, this is actually from this article right here, to tweet or not to tweet. So if you want to look that up and have that as a resource, I think that's a really nice guide on the basics of Twitter, especially from a professional aspect. So we talk about where to start. You get on social media, you've made your professional handle. Where do you start? And for those that have some educational background, you'll know Bloom's taxonomy. And honestly, you start right in the two bottom rings. You start with promoting and consuming. I still, to this day, I retweet a lot of the leaders in the PM&R field and different articles that I have read that I think are powerful. I'm retweeting those. I have gotten to the point where I am putting some of the research that I have done, and I'm putting that out there as well. But for years and still to this day, I share, celebrate, and just try to understand the landscape of social media, and try to promote others. So if you don't know where to start, kind of being that hermit crab on the bottom that just lets everything come to them is a really good place to start. Now, pitfalls. Pitfalls are exceptionally important when it comes to social media, hence the 72 font here. But the first one is institutional guidelines. So if we go back to the slide that had my profile here, and I have views equal my own. So you may have wondered, and I made sure I mentioned it, why does he have that? Of course, if he tweets it or he references it, it's going to be his ideas. Every institution will have their own guidelines for utilizing social media. That includes from a school perspective, a residency perspective. My employer is the University of Kentucky College of Medicine, and within the University of Kentucky kind of bylaws and rules and regulations, I need to put something that says, hey, my views are my own, or this is not, my views do not represent the University of Kentucky. You can have different types of verbiage there. But the overwhelming majority of institutions have something that allude to the fact that you need to put something in there. So if you go and you look at a lot of different profiles, you will see something similar, and that's why. Equally as important, by abiding by institutional guidelines, is to make sure that we keep our patients' information safe. Now, this typically happens accidentally. So let's say you're at the end of your surgery rotation. Surgery is an exhausting field to begin with, but we know that rotations can be exhausting. You want to get a great picture with all of the OR nurses and OR techs that you spent hours and hours with, and you take a picture, and all of a sudden, a patient's information for the next surgery is behind you. Or let's say that you're working at a computer and you turn around to get a picture with your residents that you're working with, and all of a sudden Mrs. Smith's information is behind you on the screen. I am always very cognizant before I post a picture. I look at the picture a couple of times and make sure that there is no patient identifying information that could lead to me violating HIPAA. I've never known of a person that just takes a picture of a person's patient chart in their EMR and posts that. That's not how this happens. It's more accidentally. So making sure that you are very, very cognizant of what you're posting and what is behind you. Another thing is making sure that you have appropriate contact with programs, residents, fellows, attendings. We'll talk about that here on the next slide. Also, making sure that you are not distributing poor quality information, making sure that if you're reading papers or reading different types of statements that have an impact in our medical realm, making sure that you're not adding to just poor quality info. And then I always think before I tweet, I still do this. Before I tweet, I say, would I want my grandma or grandpa reading this? And if they would be like, oh, probably not, I'd be like, okay, well, let me back up a little bit. So I always think, what would grandma think before I tweet? So we talked about communication. This was one of the most common questions that was sent to me from Austin in the team. And so I made this kind of do's and don'ts slide. So let's go through the do's of appropriate program communication on social media. If you take anything from this lecture, it is this statement right here. And that is the fact is the medical field, for some reason, I think one of the biggest injustices we do to you all is say you should never reach out to the program. And that is just false. I was told by people, oh, well, don't bother them. They'll reach out to you. And to this day, I'm a little peeved that I listened to that advice, just because it's not true. It is okay to reach out to programs and express your interest. It is okay to reach out and say, hey, I sent my application to you and I'm very interested in your program, and here are the reasons, if you haven't heard anything. So it is okay to reach out to program coordinators, program directors, and associate or assistant program directors and residents. You just have to do it in a particular fashion. And that the particular fashion are kind of some of the highlights below. So with every single communication that you have with programs, making sure that you're respectful and professional with all communication that you have, whether that is a text conversation with a resident or a email conversation with the program director, making sure that every communication and interaction is professional and respectful, and also be enthusiastic. I know that it's kind of a no-brainer, but you might be surprised at some of the things that I have heard or some of the communication that I have received. If you're reaching out to me, let's say, for example, if you're reaching out to me for, to express interest in University of Kentucky's physical medicine and rehab program, showing some enthusiasm about the program is going to be important. And so, not being blasé, if I were to say, hey, let's go ahead and talk about the program, and you say, yeah, so what is the research requirements? And not being enthusiastic, I'm going to be like, wow, why is this person reaching out to me to discuss the program when they don't really sound enthusiastic? So making sure, again, it goes without saying, but you'd be surprised. I think one of the biggest things to help facilitate a conversation is to try to find a connection, whether that is someone that is from your same hometown or someone who is an alum. I'll give you a personal story. So when I was on my interview dinner, this was back when interviews were in person. We went to dinner as a program and as potential applicants, and we're all sitting at the dinner table. And before we sit down, I had a person come up to me and they said, hey, are you Nick Elwert? And I said, yeah, hey, it's nice to meet you. And he's like, hey, my name is Clay. I understand you went to LMU DCOM. Well, at that moment, he probably saw my face turn completely white as a sheet, because I said, oh my gosh, I didn't do my homework to notice that I had an obvious connection with UK's program, and I didn't reach out to him. And so he was the one that said, hey, I understand that you went to LMU. And so we had that connection, and the communication and the discussion went really smoothly. But, to this day, I use that as an example, is don't do that. If you reach out and you are interested in a program, and most likely they are going to have a resident bio that says where they went to school, make sure if you have a connection there, make sure you utilize that, because that can certainly go in your favor. Last but not least, it is okay to reach out to programs. I encourage you reaching out to programs, but make sure that you are patient and then persistent to a degree. If you are reaching out to me in my DMs every other day, I say tongue in cheek, I think that's fine, but there also are some, reaching out maybe every other day is maybe a little too much. Where is that too much versus not enough? It's a tough discussion, but reaching out every day to me via Twitter is probably a little too much. Maybe reaching out once a month or once every couple of weeks to show your continued interest, I think is a good idea. What are some of the don'ts? So don't be unprepared with your communication. So if you were to ask me, hey, what are your PGY2 what's your PGY2 rotation schedule? I would say, hey, here's the schedule, but also this is outlined on our website if you want some more information. What might be a better question is, hey, I understand that you are a stroke rehab attending, and I see that that's in your PGY2 year. Can you tell me about the rotation? That tells me that you've done your research on our program to say, hey, the residents there do their stroke time during their second year of residency, and I know that Dr. Nick is a stroke attending, so let me ask him about the rotation. That just shows that you've prepared, and again, it goes back to the being enthusiastic about the program. Making sure that with every communication that you check your grammar, make sure that your punctuation is correct and that there's not a ton of errors in your communication. And again, being prepared and asking questions that are found on the website really doesn't it can potentially look bad on you. Last but not least is delayed responses. If you reach out to me and I get back to you as soon as I'm able to, and then I don't hear anything for months, again, it goes back to the being courteous, being enthusiastic. I will be the first one to say I have certainly lost a Twitter message in my inbox and haven't gotten back to someone in a month or 6 weeks. But that goes back to that being patient and persistent. A little nudge that says, hey, Dr. Nick, just wanted to follow up on this question after you haven't heard anything for 6 weeks is very appropriate. Okay, so take a break, take a drink. I know I'm going to take a drink here. So we've talked last 30 minutes, we talked about all the virtual opportunities, how to get started, how to communicate. We're going to switch gears just a little bit and talk about virtual fairs. If we had a networking lecture and I didn't talk about virtual fairs to you all, I would be doing you a disservice. So that's why we're going to talk about this. So we talked at one of the very first slides, we said, well, how do you get started? And I said, well, you go to Twitter, you go to Instagram, you go to program websites. These are the things that you're looking for. The overwhelming majority of all programs will have some type of opportunity, some type of virtual open house, virtual lecture series to help let you have an opportunity to see what their program is all about and get an opportunity to meet them. So I hope by now you've seen that I like to try to keep some organization with my slides. This slide particularly gets me a little anxious just because it's not symmetric and all the different posts are a little different size, but I did that for a reason. And that's just to show you how many opportunities that there are. This was taken not too terribly long ago, but I know that there are other programs that are enhancing their sessions, programs that are kind of joining the party. And you can see here, all of these have a little different of a flair. So bottom left-hand corner, Northwestern Neurology has an open house with some of their chief residents, their program director, and some of their other residents. You have UC Davis Dermatology has a virtual residency information session. Here, Michigan Anesthesia has a virtual residency open house. Neurology at UT Health McGovern has an open house here with a lot of their residents and residency program leadership. We've got Weill Cornell Urology has a whole bunch of dates and it has a contact here. Wildcat Wednesday is what we do here at UK PM&R. So we meet every other Wednesday starting about the early July. And we go for about 3 months where we meet every other Wednesday talking about the program, different aspects, get a chance to really meet program leadership and meet the residents. Now with virtual fairs, you've noticed that everyone looks a little, every program kind of looks a little different in what they're doing. But if you break it down, there's really 3 main types of virtual fairs. So there's institutional. So for example, here at the University of Kentucky, you have a virtual residency fair where you can interact with all of these different programs. Now you notice that this is from 2021. This happened in 22, and I expect will happen in 23 as well. And so from an institution-wide, If someone is interested in the University of Kentucky adult neurology program, you come that day, you hear about University of Kentucky GME, different resources we have, and then you get a chance to interact with adult neurology. There's also program specific. So that's the slide prior, where a particular program at an institution will have their own either virtual fair, their an open house, or a lecture series. And then you have organizational. So if you take a look at the field of interest that you're pursuing and you look at the main organizational bodies, I would expect that some of them have helped create some type of virtual residency fair. So with PM&R, there's a group called PM&R Scholars, which was actually a grassroots project initially through residents that they reached out when COVID really hit. We all kind of reached out to programs and said, hey, we'd like for you to be a part of this virtual residency fair. And at the time, I think there were 96 programs. We had 76 programs that participated in this. Once a week, it was kind of split geographically. And so that's an organizational residency fair. So institution-wide, program-specific, or an organization that helps facilitate a virtual residency fair. All right, so let's finish up. Let's see what time it is, 7:37, perfect. So we're gonna talk about interviews. As I said, a virtual networking session, a virtual networking lecture, your goal, I would expect, given that most of you all are medical students, your goal is to get an interview, number one. And so we gotta talk about virtual interviews if we're gonna talk about virtual networking. So before your interview, you're looking on all the Twitter and Instagram, seeing what fairs you can go to, trying to balance that all out with the work that you have. And then you've got during the interview, this might be you. This particular person has a shirt and tie on, a camera at a good angle, given, going through his interview. And then after the interview, you're excited because you're done with the long day, however long the interview may last. So those are the three different parts of an interview that we all know, but let's kind of go through and talk about some virtual specific aspects of the interview. So before the interview, right now, if you're saying, hey, I want to pursue a career in internal medicine, I would make a list of things that you're looking for in a program and start making that list as long as it can be of everything that you're looking for. And then research all the different programs that you might be interested in as much as possible. As I mentioned, that goes into the being prepared and being enthusiastic about a program, is making sure that you've researched. I think I've said this too many times now, is making sure that with all communication that you're respectful, and the alumni at your school. I purposely put it here for another reminder, is you have the opportunity to really take advantage of a relationship. If you have noticed that an alum is at the program that you're interested in, you have an instant connection that you should utilize. The biggest thing before, during, and after your interview is making sure that you know your application, making sure, if you put that, you had a really amazing experience 8-9 years ago on a missions trip, making sure that you can mention that and talk about it. Just making sure, don't put that you can speak another language if you can't, because you never may know. They may have a faculty member that speaks that language, and then all of a sudden you're paired up with them, and maybe you fibbed a little bit on what language you can, if you're fluent in different languages. So making sure that you know your application. Practice, practice, practice. You'll notice this also on the during the interview slide, making sure that the lighting is appropriate, your connection is good. I'll be the first one to say my email and my Twitter handle is at the very last slide. If you want to send me a message and say, hey, can we run through a Zoom real quick to make sure my connection works? I'm more than happy to do that. Making sure that you are prepared, not only from a technical standpoint, but kind of going through some interview jitters is going to be very, very important. Even before logging on to the call or the lecture tonight, I made sure I went through to make sure that my lighting was good. We just moved, and You can't see because I've blurred the background, but we have a light that literally is right above me. And so when I have it on, it causes some lighting issues. And again, I'm not saying that a program is going to look negatively on you if you have lighting issues, but you just want to make sure that you put your best step forward. And then and going from there. So let's talk about the actual virtual interview aspect. So if you take a look, if you're happening to look at my picture during the session, you can see that I am looking kind of down and I'm looking to my right. That is because that is where I have my picture. But if you notice, if I move it right below the camera and I'm looking right here, I can not only see my face, but I can also appear that I am staring right in the middle of the camera. So that's important, making sure that not only you're looking directly into the camera, but making sure that your camera is at the appropriate height. I'm currently using an integrated webcam, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to do an interview where you can see this. No one wants to see my button and just my lips moving. But then on the flip side, you don't want to do this because then you're going to just get bad angles. So again, going back to making sure that you practice and making sure that you are at a good camera angle. Testing your internet connection, I've mentioned that ad nauseum, and making sure that you practice. I purposely adjusted my backlighting because I knew this was going to be my advice and wanted to make sure that I was doing as I practice as I preach. But if you take a look at my unblurred background in the light that I have in the back, it can cause some issues. So making sure that lights are in front of you. You probably noticed when I adjusted the camera, you saw that my light was right there. And that's because I want to make sure that that the light is on my face, that you guys can see me talking, that it's kind of like a lecture in person as much as we can. Also, what you want to do is make sure that you don't have like the Price is Right going on like 80 volume in the back behind you, or just having your TV on. Certainly, there are things that you can't necessarily account for. A pet that might go crazy when the mail comes. That's okay. I get a lot of questions on that. Like, should I board my pet before the interview? We actually want pets to come to the interview. I can't remember. There was one day where I think everyone on our interview day had a pet. And so in between interviews, everyone introduced their pets. There are some things that you just can't account for, but there are things like, your phone going off multiple times, having the TV on when you're not watching it. Those are some of the things that you can account for. Last but not least, to kind of finish up the content part of the lecture is after the interview, I really recommend, I know that the interview days are long, but making sure that after you shut your computer, take out a piece of paper or your notebook. I had all my programs when I went through interviews in a notebook, and I wrote down my initial impressions of the interview. You will be so much more like your impression of that interview is going to be so much fresher if you do it right afterwards, as opposed to doing a week after. I understand that the habit is to maybe shut the computer, go and maybe work out or watch some TV or just try to relax. I certainly understand that, and I encourage that, but really try to do your best to write down that initial impressions, because that's going to be your best guide moving forward. As you begin to write down those initial impressions, I would compare your list that you made at the very beginning of what is everything I want in my ideal program, and then begin a pro-con list for programs. I will be the first one to say there is not one perfect program. No matter what field you look at, there is no program that is going to check every single one of those boxes. There will certainly be programs that check more of your boxes than others. But that's where you get your pro-con list and say, okay, these are the cons of the program, these are the pros. Where do they ultimately end up on my list? Now, a pro-con list doesn't necessarily have to be just the content that was provided to you guys during the session, but what are some of the pro-con lists, of different type of virtual opportunities. Geography is a big thing for me. When I was looking at interviews, at that time, it was just me and my wife, and we wanted to be close to family. So, we put some geographical constraints on my application. So a pro con list, that's certainly where their geography was. It certainly was not the only factor, but it was a factor into my initial application process. And then as I got into interviews, if a place was 8 hours away, took that just into consideration. So, you can have things outside of what are the program's numbers, what are their experience. Those are all very, very important, obviously, but there are other things that are important as well. I think following up in December, January on with programs, asking them about questions that you might have, I think is important to, making sure that you stay fresh in that program's mind. Thank you cards and emails. If you were to get a line of 50 different program directors and associate program directors and coordinators and ask them, should you send out thank you cards or emails? It's probably going to be a 50-50 split. I know for a fact there are some programs that say, hey, we don't want a thank you card or an email. I think it doesn't hurt. Just sending a quick email or sitting down and writing a thank you card. I did it. I recommend it, but I guarantee you there are other people that recommend against it. So again, this is where, as you are embarking on this process or right in the middle of it, you're going to get some advice that is different than someone else. I guarantee you, if you were to ask another faculty member at another program, they may say, oh, I don't recommend doing thank you cards. And this is where you take everything together and say, okay, what do I want to do? All right, so in summary, so what have we covered? I think I have hopefully impressed upon you that networking is really vital in a virtual recruitment realm. And I hope that I have equipped you with ways in which you can utilize social media the right way and open up a bevy of opportunities for you. I again have to go back through. Social media is an amazing resource, but it definitely has pitfalls that you have to watch out for. When you look at what are the opportunities, whether that is you're looking on program websites, organizational websites, or social media, making sure that you're taking advantage of those virtual fairs. I get a lot of questions as to, hey, I'm interested in this program. Do I need to attend every single one? No, not necessarily. There are some programs that, will take an attendance. There's some that won't. I don't think it's necessary for you to, if they have a lot of different opportunities and it's the same thing multiple times, I don't think you need to go to every one of them, obviously. But just making sure that you're known and they can put a face with a name. And then we talked about the virtual interview breakdown. So I'm going to leave this slide up for a second. Here's my email and my Twitter handle. If you have gone through this lecture and you're like, you know what, I really want to get onto social media, I really want to get onto Med Twitter, by all means, take a picture and post it. If you want to tag me in the post, I'll be the first one to help kind of distribute it and get your name out there. So with that kind of concludes all of the content of the lecture. Now, I want to go ahead and make sure that I open it up to questions. I am seeing a couple of questions. So if you have them, just go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll just kind of take them as they come. So the first question I have is from Austin Anderson. If we are on an audition rotation and want to attend a virtual event that overlaps with clinic hours, would you recommend asking permission to attend? The idea of a virtual event is to provide you with information about that program. And so let's say, for example, they are doing a virtual event and they are doing a session on inpatient experience. At the end of the day, your rotation and your patients come first. And so if you miss it, go up and ask whoever ran it, whether it was the program director, the program coordinator. If you were in clinic here at UK and you were to say, hey, Dr. Nick, I saw that you had a Wildcat Wednesday that talked about the inpatient experience at the program. Can we sit down and talk about that? To me, that's going to really, really show that you've done your research, and it's really going to make an impression to me to say, man, this person really is interested in our program, and we're going to sit down and talk, and it might actually be of even maybe more benefit to you. But I think if I were to look at what's more important, going to clinic or going to a virtual event, it would be making sure that you take care of your patients first.
Dr. Elwer, we one of the interesting registrant questions that we had was, as a residency program, what frequency should you be posting things to social media to keep applicants interested?
That's an awesome question. So I think that doing a once a week post or once every other week post is kind of the sweet spot. If you take a look at our Instagram, we're kind of gearing up for, right, kind of everyone's gearing up for the next cycle. And when you think about what are some of the things that you can post to have that amount of frequency, we did residency spotlights or resident spotlights. So, we made sure that if a resident was or was not okay with having just some basic info about them posted. And so, we did a spotlight that, for example, one of our like PGY 2 residents is very involved with family in his church and really enjoys, working out. And so those are some of the things we highlighted. And we did that about once a week, every 2 weeks. And so I think that is really the sweet spot. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have a whole bunch of posts and then go radio silent for 6 weeks and then have a whole bunch of posts. It's better to have things in a timed fashion, a little bit over a long period of time than like boluses of posts. I think it's a great question.
And I guess another one is having a medical social media presence necessary to be successful?
So it's not necessary. It can certainly help you. I think the reason why I mention it so many times is the majority of programs, that is how they post their different types of events. And so if you are adamant to say, Dr. Nick, I do not want to have a social media presence, I don't want to, do that at all. You could do a couple of things. One is you could not even mess with it, and that would be fine. And then just take a look at what opportunities they have through organizational websites or program websites. The other thing you could do is you could just make an account that on social media, follow some programs just so you see what they're posting, but that's the only thing to use it for, is to look and see what programs are doing and really not interact. So at the end of the day, is it necessary to be successful? No. Does it open opportunities? Yes.
Awesome. Yeah, if there's no further questions, I think we'll close it out. Thank you so much, Dr. Elwert, for this great presentation.
Absolutely.
And to all who joined us. Yeah, that was a great presentation. This webinar will be, the recording will be posted to the AOGME webinar series webpage. If you have any questions, please contact us directly at aogme@acom.org. This concludes our webinar. Thank you again to Dr. Elwert, and thank you again to everyone who joined us. Have a great evening.
Take care, everyone.